Welcome to the Bible Conversations podcast. Our focus for conversation starters this year is going to be practical tips on how to begin a conversation with someone about the Bible and about Jesus. We hope that you will find some helpful information in these short segments that will enable you to share your faith with others.
Today's conversation starter key is acknowledge. We have to acknowledge what our role is when it comes to starting conversations about Jesus. Paul had the same kind of conversation with the church in Corinth in the letter he wrote to them, 1 Corinthians. In chapter 3, he starts talking about the divisions that they have among themselves, how some are following Paul, some are following Peter, some are following Apollos. And he says in verse 5 of chapter 3, "What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth." Just as Paul acknowledges what his role is here, as Apollos acknowledges what his role is here, how they are just merely servants to the Most High God, we have to acknowledge our same role. We have to acknowledge what our job is in the whole scheme of God being reconciled to humanity. Humanity being reconciled to God. We are not the savior of any one person. It doesn't fall entirely on any of our own shoulders when it comes to bringing people to Christ. And once we do start thinking in that way, that's when we put too much pressure on ourselves and talk ourselves out of sharing our faith. So my encouragement to you today is to acknowledge what your role is, to acknowledge your spot of service in the whole plan that God has for humanity. But the second part of acknowledgement is actually found in Matthew chapter 10. Jesus says in verse 32 of Matthew 10, "So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven." So this conversation starter key of acknowledge is really two parts. We have to acknowledge our role, and we have to acknowledge Christ as Lord. When we do that, then we can share our faith with so many more people. We can spread the word so much more effectively because it doesn't fall on our shoulders. We acknowledge who is Lord, who is the Savior, and we acknowledge what our role is in that.
Thank you for listening to this conversation starter. We appreciate your desire to share your faith with others, and we hope that this episode has been of benefit to you. If you would like to reach us, please email us at kcocbibleconversations@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram by simply searching Bible Conversations. Please check back in on Fridays for our full episode.